Cashflow Quadrant is a book by Robert Kiyosaki. Every single person out there knows this already, and every single person out there probably knows Robert Kiyosaki because the community in finance is kind of very small. And if you know Robert, then you know Tony, you know every single person out there, okay? But here's the deal. I can't just talk about Robert without actually talking what's actually going on in today's entire thing with him, all right? Because a lot of people out there are talking about him in a very negative way. And every single time I think about this, and by the way, guys, every single time I do a book review, I usually don't talk about the author. I just focus on the book and on the context. But this time, I kind of can't do that because I think this information is actually very prevalent to the video. Because I want to make sure you guys understand what's actually going on behind the man that's actually giving us this advice. Now, if you don't know, Robert Kiyosaki's business actually went bankrupt not too long ago. On top of that, a lot of people were saying like, hey, you know something, Tommy? His book wasn't really fiction. Well, wasn't really non-fiction. It was kind of fiction because his entire Rich Dad was actually based on a whole bunch of different advisors that he kind of like morphed into one. Because if you don't know, right, the Rich Dad, the original guy, is actually a doctor that was his dad's friend, okay? He wasn't really like a realtor. He wasn't really doing all that extra stuff, okay? He wasn't really the richest man in Hawaii. He kind of made this entire persona of this one person, blah, 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 all right? No one knew that. I didn't know that. And guys, by the way, I do a segment on this channel when I actually talk about like, you know, like entrepreneurs and actually say like, hey, are they a scam? Are they not? Should you trust them? Should you not? I'm thinking about doing one for Robert Kiyosaki. So if you want to see that video, go ahead and like and subscribe and comment down below too if you want to watch it, right? Because I can make it tomorrow. Now, here's the deal. I want to really focus on something, right? The first thing is this, right? Going bankrupt doesn't really mean anything because we all know that a lot of people out there go bankrupt several times just to avoid like real consequences. Like for example, like Donald Trump, who's the president of the United States, 50 cents. Like there's a whole bunch of people that actually do that. And when it comes to entire like, oh my gosh, he's like non-fiction, like fiction, blah, blah, blah. This person isn't really real. I don't really care. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, the entire, like, perspective is like, hey, if you got value from the book, that's really all that's important, okay? So I don't really want to talk about that too much. And if you're just, like, picking and choosing stuff and, like, just trying to be like, oh, my gosh, that's not real, this is not real, blah, 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 then you are not really going to, like, focus on the book and the value of it, okay? And here's the deal. The only people that really do that are people that are paid to do that, like bloggers, and people that make videos on people, like, you know what I mean? Like, probably like me. I could probably do that. You know, I could probably like pick and choose things because that's kind of like my job. But the average person is just looking for value. I'm kind of like the average person also. So when I'm reading a book, I'm looking for the value of it. All right. And that's all that's important. So let's get right into the book and actually talking about what it's actually about and if it actually benefits you or not. Now, the first thing that I do want to say, guys, is that in this entire review, I'm going to give you the value of the book in this entire like 12-minute video, maybe longer. I don't know how long the video is. Okay. But here's the deal. I'm going to give you all the value, but if you still want to read the book after, I still recommend you read the book. The reason is because, like, you know, when you read a book, that's 8 hours long. Like I mean, the audio that I do, right? Because I'm an audio person, it's like 8 hours long. When you listen to that book, you're going to get a lot of stories and a lot of like metaphors and stuff like that. So when you're done reading the book, you're going to remember all these things, but you might not remember everything I'm saying in this video unless you're actually writing it down. It's called memory, okay? That's how memory works, okay? So actually, let's break down everything. If you don't want to read the book, make sure you're writing down every single thing that I'm saying, all right? It's very important that you do so you can actually remember what I'm saying. All right, so the cash flow quadrant is basically what it sounds like, okay? It's like different sectors and different things that actually go together and actually tell you every single aspect of how an employee works, an investor works, a self-employed person is, and even like a business owner works, okay? Like Bill Gates, like all these people, all right? You can put them each and every single one in one of these quadrants and actually say like, oh my gosh, they actually do this or they actually do that, okay? So the 4 quadrants are basically E for employee, S for self-employed, B for business owner, and I for investor. Every one of them is different, and every single person out there fits into one of these quadrants. Now, does that mean that you can only have one of those quadrants? The answer is no. You can actually fit in all 4 of those. That means that you can actually have a job, be an investor, have a business, and actually be self-employed also at the same time. There's a lot of people that actually do that, which is insane. It's a lot of work, but some people are actually rare enough to actually do this. Now, the first quadrant that we want to talk about is the E quadrant. The E quadrant is called the employee quadrant. Now, if you don't know what this actually means, it's kind of really basic, okay? It's a quadrant that most people out there are actually a part of. Now, for example, when I first graduated from college, right, and I got a job and I worked there, it didn't matter if I was better than my colleagues or anything like that. What mattered was the time that I actually put in, okay? Because all of us was working like basically the same 8 hours. We would all get paid the same for the same 8 hours. If I did 10 times the work, it didn't matter. We'll still get paid the same rate for those hours. And that kind of sucks. On top of that, I didn't get a lot of tax advantages because it was like ordinary income. I got taxed like 30%. On top of that, I didn't really receive all of my money every time I got paid because I had tax withholding for Social Security. All right, so you never really receive all the money. So there's not really a lot of benefits to actually doing this. All right, a lot of people out there have ordinary jobs, and one statistics that I actually want to share with you that the cash flow people and Robert Kiyosaki don't really share with you is this. Okay, 1 in 5 millionaires in America have a regular employee job, and they're actually part of the entire employee quadrant. And the reason is because it doesn't matter if you're an employee. What really matters is that what you actually do with the money once you receive the money. Okay. And a lot of people, well, most of the people actually receive the money, just spend the money, okay? But the people that are like 1 in 5 millionaires, they actually receive the money, invest the money, keep the money, make more money, all right? So that's the entire thing. Now, the S quadrant is basically for self-employed people. That means that, for example, right, if you are a consultant, right, and I come to your business and you're there and I'm like, oh my gosh, can you give me some advice on taxes, blah, 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 and all this stuff. You tell me yes, you charge me a fee. And that's great. That's awesome. You're making money and you're your own boss. But in reality, the business only runs with you. All right. So that means that if you're sick that day, then you won't make any money. If you sleep in that day, then you won't make any money. And that kind of sucks. And when I say self-employed business, it's kind of like, less than 5 employees. And it's like kind of like and your income is directly proportionate to what your activity actually is. That means if you work a lot, you make more money, but the more you work, the more time is required from you and the more money you actually get, but you kind of don't have the time to actually spend the money. On top of that, you really don't get a lot of tax advantages from being self-employed because that's how the system is kind of set up. You might be able to put in your car in the company to get a tax deduction, but it's not really a lot of things you can actually do. If you do think there's a lot of things you can actually do self-employed, comment down below and let me know, and we can actually go over everything, okay? And if you want to be on the show with me and actually have a conversation about all this stuff, you can actually do that. Just comment down below and we can set something up, all right? Now, the third quadrant is one of my favorites. It's actually the the B quadrant, right? It's the business owner quadrant. And there's a lot of people that are in this quadrant that really are not in this quadrant. I need some water. Now, what I mean by business owner is basically that you have a business that has more than maybe 500 employees, right? And at this point, you don't just have a business, you kind of have a system, all right? And this system doesn't really require you to actually be participating to actually make you money. It means that you have a president or a CEO that actually runs the entire business, all right? For example, if you own like 10 McDonald's, right? You don't need to be there every single day. Like the business runs better without you. Like you have a manager, you have an entire team, you have people that put on the burgers and all this stuff, and that's kind of how it works. Now, you do get a ton of tax advantages, and if you're in this quadrant, you can actually pay 0 taxes dependent on which corporation you actually choose. LLC, S Corp, C Corp, depending on what you want, right? Now, the last quadrant is the I quadrant, investor quadrant, and it really is my favorite. Now, investor quadrant means that you're very skilled at making money, make more money for you, okay? And this means that you can make money while you sleep, while you're awake, while you're dancing, while you're on vacation, while you're with your kids, doesn't matter. And usually what happens is this, right? The more success you get into the B and I quadrant, like the more success you get into these quadrants, the more time you actually have for free time. But usually with the other side of the quadrant, which is the I and the E quadrant, well, the S and the E quadrant, employee and self-employed, the more time you spend on these quadrants and the more successful you actually get, well, the more time it requires of you, okay? So you make more money, but you have less time, all right? And that kind of sucks. Now, I do want to share a quick story with you guys to actually reflect how this actually works and how the mentality can actually be a key feature to what you actually decide to be. Now, before I even tell you the story, I want to tell you something, right? If you want to change, right, and you actually want to change your quadrant, you kind of have to change your entire core and how you actually see the world. Because whenever I talk to someone that's kind of like an employee and they've been an employee for a very long time, I tell them, hey, this is kind of risky, but like the outcome, the ROI is actually very high. All right. So it's kind of like proportionate. They tell me, well, I don't like risk. I don't want to do that. I just rather invest into my 401k. I don't want to do that, Tommy. All right. I'm just walking away. I don't want to do that. All right. And it's kind of cool. I get it, but I don't really get it. All right. Because that's not who I want to be. But if you want to change your entire aspect, you kind of have to change how you actually see the world, okay? Rather than seeing it as the world like is limited, you kind of gonna see like the world like full of abundance and stuff like that, okay? You kind of have to work on yourself, and the only way to actually do that is by doing more research on personal development, and actually finding out who you are and actually correcting some of the features that you might think that are part of you, but in reality they were just instilled in you by your parents, by your friends, and that people that just don't really understand how the world actually works, okay? Now, here's the story, right? Robert Kiyosaki uses a story that's very cool, okay? Now, here's the deal. He talks about two people, two contractors that are fighting to actually get a contract for water, right? They want to water this village that doesn't have any water, and thus they're fighting with the city to actually see which one gets the contract. The city is kind of smart, very savvy, so the city decides, well, rather than actually give one of you the contract, we'll actually give it to both of you. Now, you probably ask me, Tommy, why would they do that? Well, the reason that she did that was because they had the entire idea. Well, if we give it to both of them, then they will be competing and prices would actually stay down, all right? Because that's how the world works, all right? So the first person actually started doing something that was really normal. He took the entire contract and he started he bought 2 buckets and started carrying water from the well from Monday to Friday to the entire village every single morning before the people woke up, gave them water, they paid him. Great, right? He didn't work on the weekends because he wanted to have time to actually rest. The second person actually disappeared for like a month or two. Now, the second person is very, very unique in this way, all right? The first person was like, all right, this is great. I don't have competition. And I can just do this over and over again. And it's actually a very good gig. Now, when the second person actually came back, he came back with his entire business plan, a president for the company, investors to actually get done what he actually wanted to get done. Now, while that first person was actually carrying water every single day to the village, the second person actually got a business plan, and that business plan involved actually building an entire pipeline, right? Made out of stainless steel. I don't know what I told you that, but I'm very detailed like that. Made out of stainless steel that carries water from the well to the village 24/7 without having to need any labor, okay? And here's what happened. When the second person actually came to the village and offered everything, he said, well, here's how it's going to work, okay? With this entire pipeline, we're actually going to lower prices by 75%, and you can actually get water 24/7. Now, imagine being the other guy when you're hearing this, okay? He's thinking probably oh my gosh, he's going to lower prices by 75%, have water 24/7. That means I have to work on the weekends and the weekdays now, and I make less money, all right? So he thought about this, right? Because remember, he's kind of on the self-employed quadrant, kind of like an employee also, right? He thought, well, what I will do is I'll lower prices too, all right? Here I am. I'll lower prices too, 75%, and I'll buy 2 more buckets so now I can carry more water. And on top of that, I'll hire my kids also so they can actually help me carry the water back and forth, all right? That's what he thought. That's what he did, all right? And he did that until he was 50, until he couldn't do it anymore. And then when he was 50, he told his kids, well, you're going off to college now, but make sure you come back because this business can actually be yours one day. And the kids never came back. They didn't want to be a part of that business because it obviously didn't work. But person B actually said this, okay? Person B said, well, if this village needs water, then there's probably another village that actually needs water. So he started giving water to all the villages around the area and only charging 1 cent per bucket, okay? Well, per gallon, all right? And guess what? Right, 1 cent, but he had over 100 million gallons. Well, it was 100 million. Yeah, he had over 100 million gallons of water every single day delivered to all those villages. So he made a ton of money. He's not required to be there because he has a president and he's a business owner. He's actually an investor, and that's basically the difference between the left quadrant, which is the E and S quadrant, versus the business owner and I quadrant, when you can actually make money without actually having to be present. All right, and here's the deal. Notice when this guy started to have more success, right? Because he had to get more buckets, have his kids involved, actually do more water, do more stuff, right? Notice when he got more success in that way, he was required to actually stay around more and actually give up more of his time. But notice on the B side, when this guy got more success, he wasn't really required to actually be present because he was making so much more money that he can actually just lay off and just chill. Guys, my name is TommyBryson. If you don't know me, you know me now. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and like and subscribe. And comment down below any more ideas or books you want me to read. And if you want to come on the show and actually talk about a finance topic, just let me know and I'll get working on it, okay? And tomorrow, we're going to talk about the Robert Kiyosaki thing and actually talking about if he's a scam or if he's not, okay? Because I'm very interested in actually doing more research on him and actually finding out what's actually been going on. I'll see you guys next time on the next video, and peace. You've got to start at the bottom if you